Welcome back, everyone, to the Limitless online series. First major events held on Limitless, of course, the Play Limitless website, and all thanks to the Potown store helping out with the prizing. 1K prizing on the line for top 8 players, 250 for the winner, as well as a sweet playmat. This round, we're going to be seeing Trash Tree, who's going to be playing Pikarom with some hammers and some Yell Grunts coming up against Junjun in the top corner here. Pikarom not wanting to go first particularly too much. It is playing some Mewtwo in there as well. Typically, you want to work towards that Electrify play if you're the player going second. When you go first, it's slightly different. Sometimes, based on your hand, you can try and start ripping Dedenes and stuff like that to go for the Coco Full Blitz kind of combo on turn 2 for high pressure. Otherwise, you kind of play a turn behind. And seeing him search out the Bolton straight away here, maybe just because we have that many quick balls he can go for this route, he could still bin a Pikarom and still then quick ball out the Coco Prism and then just freely Dedenne here. So a few options for him so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe Junjun is on Centiskorch VMAX, this makes it an interesting matchup. We can see as Trash Tree went through their deck, we see a lot of Crushing Hammers, Yell Grunt in there. Actually, I think they're playing 2 copies. So it's going to be interesting if they can hamper the Centiskorch VMAX from really getting rolling, because there's obviously a threshold where your Crushing Hammers lose a little value against a deck that can well draw on multiple energy, Flare Starter multiple energy. As well as buy back energies in the discard just naturally through the Gmax Centriferno attack. So I don't know how much mileage they're going to get out of that, but if they are going to get any, it's going to be early.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really just trying to keep them out of range for a turn. Even though they'll still attack you, it's just staying. It's the difference between alive and not alive a lot of the time is that 40 times multiplier, just keeping them out of range. It's always better to start with this Mewtwo and Mew because it naturally forces one more energy attachment out of the Centiskorch. Like you said, there's 2 already hitting the board. There's a Volk coming down already. There's already that attachment. So it's going to be quick balling now, probably for a fresh 6, either from Dedenne or from Crobat. Then Stellar Wish plays and look to try and find potentially more Welders and move that Jirachi out of the way. And we're on to a really good start with the Centiskorch.
I hope Mad Trucker 78's taking some notes here, because Junjun is putting on a clinic on how your turn 2 is actually supposed to go. Crobat for the clean 6, as you mentioned, still Stellar Wish available to Junjun. Using it now, and really the crucial point is going to be get this Jirachi out of the active. Let's get Volcanion up in the mix, and let's Flare Starter. Giant Hearth is going to make it easy to get some energy, and we still have the opportunity to play a Welder if it's somewhere in the deck as well.
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be eyed up here, as we are seeing. Throwing one into the discard pile to grab a couple more straight away, slamming down the Welder, going onto some Centiskorch here, powering them up. It's oftentimes important not to only commit to just one Centiskorch, but sometimes having 2 ready to rumble so that you don't just fall prey to stamp plays and all that sort of stuff. So you could still commit a lot to one Centi here, but I kind of like seeing the splits at least a little bit right now so that you're not completely all in on one Centiskorch.
Absolutely. Crushing Hammer now live. Yell Grunt maybe also live as Trash Tree continues to develop their board, and Crushing Hammer on cue. Going to start powering down the one Centiskorch that maybe had the possibility to go for that one-turn knockout on Junjun's following turn. Quick Ball going to dig up a Crobat. We're going to find some more cards for Trash Tree here as they continue to develop their game plan and try and get some more lightning energy onto their side of the board.
Yeah, the lack of energies that we've seen so far from Trash Tree means that we're probably going to see him try and work towards an Electrify play and play a little bit on the back foot here. Crobatting for 3 here, choosing not to Giant Half as a -1, which was an option to him, but instead just taking the 3 for face value, just get a Tails on his next Crushing Hammer. Could try and just attach to the Bolton and research for switch outs. You could also, of course, trash this energy, knowing that you have Tapu Koko Prism Star. Half could be the second activation of energy to get full value from the Coco as well. I don't see an easy way to full blitz here, unfortunately, for him. Only 1 switch out, so he can't get straight back into the Mewtwo unless he wants to make a huge push with Dead Change as well, which is, optional, but not looking ideal. Yeah, I think just committing to the Boltons and going for the Electrify is probably a safer move here.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep developing your board. You know, it is a tightrope to walk when to kind of switch gears into high amounts of pressure with that high risk place, kind of similar to what you're talking about in round one today. But developing the board here is a good situation. Worth noting, Trash Tree down 3 Crushing Hammers, down the 1 Yell Grunt. The other one's tucked in the prizes. So Energy Denial is not part of the mix for them anymore. So now it's going to be trying to match the pace that Junjun's going to put on with their G-Max Centrofarno attack, that heavy Sense of Scorch VMAX, and another welder is going to make this something to keep an eye on for sure, because that Bolton does not look long for this world.
Yeah, weld into the active so we can pay retreat. With the 4 energy, you are able to knock out that Bolton V, so putting a huge amount of pressure on straight away. You also get to get that 5th energy put straight up to you, so then you're threatening a KO even on the tag team the following turn. So really nice start. Turn 1 was good, the turn 2 was good enough to take the KO and build a big Center Scorch. So doing really well so far. And as you said, there's 1 stamp has already hit the discard pile. Trash Tree, with the hand that he's sat on right now, may be forced to stamp straight away, which doesn't feel great. And yeah, he's feeling a little bit behind right now. Draws into Speed Lightning Energy, which you don't really want to see. He's already drawn a lot of energy cards, so throwing those away also feels pretty rough. But he needs to make something from this hand.
Absolutely. No, the 1 stamp gone, but having the other stamp here isn't the worst. At least mixes it up, reduces the hand size, gives Junjun less options next turn in theory. And now just going for the day-day change, throwing away a lot of energy. That Tapu Koko Prism is ready to Dance of the Ancients 2 energy onto the board if that is what Trash Tree wants to eye up. Marnie, an option to mix things up. Switch, maybe Choo Choo GX comes into the mix as well. It's going to be interesting to see the direction that they go, given the interesting composition of their hand right now.
I think switch Balloon and just come in again with Tandem Shock and try and buy a turn with Paralysis is definitely the best move you can make. You can go into the Dene and get full value from Coco now as well, actually putting it onto 2 targets that you genuinely want in play. You can play the Marnie. It's the same amount of cards for the opponent as the stamp was, but you get yourself into a fresh hand, and you're trying to set up the Sense Scorch to get 2 shot here, and just hedging that the low hand size from the opponents is not going to be enough to deal with the Paralysis. I'm really surprised that we're not going to see the Marnie here. I think it's probably the best play because it just gives you more options next turn. Because if Junjun just passes, then you don't want a Marnie anymore. Whereas if you just Marnie now, you're giving them the same amount of cards as before, and you give yourself more options. So I'm kind of surprised that these Marnies haven't been played.
Pitching the quick ball to use the Giant Hearth, get a fire energy, I believe is what we just saw there. And another welder, going to put 1 onto the Center Scorch. I think we're looking for a switch, maybe a scoop up net, something along those lines to try and get our powered up Center Scorch back into the active. Pokemon Communication going to throw Eldegoss back into the deck, which is known for dredging up some supporters out of the discard. And it's going to be interesting to see what Junjun chooses here. Heatran GX. So maybe it's a switch, pull all the energy onto the Heatran GX, and go ahead and use its GX attack to take a knockout. You have a good deck has been called by Trash Tree.
Yeah, the Heatran's the easiest way to get out of this awkward situation. Get a huge knockout here. Hot Burn GX, 3 big prize cards.
After using the Burning Road, is that what it is? The Burning Road ability?
Exactly.
To drag off the energy off that G-Max, Center Scorch V-Max, excuse me, and just taking an easy knockout.
It's a long way back from here. Yeah. So the Raichu can come in and do Paralysis plays again. Both stamps have been played, so you're only able to Marnie your opponent's hand size down at this point. There's no easy way to take a 1-hit KO in any fashion here. So you're trying to slowly get through the Heatran, then slowly get through another Center Scorch, then finish off the Center Scorch that you've already damaged. You're like 4 attacks minimum. No, you're like 5 attacks minimum away from winning, I think. Possibly if you can Lightning Ride GX, you can win in like 4 attacks. But that's still a lot of turns you're giving your opponent when you're no longer able to stamp at this point. And there's still a decent amount of switch outs left for Junjun as well.
Tandem Shock has been called. That is a paralyzed Heatran GX. I'm still chuckling about the "you have a good deck." That was very strategically placed there. Fire Crystal after a scoop up net on the Volcanion. Gonna buy back some of those fire energy. Maybe buying off some room on the bench for Eldegoss or Mewtwo or something like that to get a welder back into the hand. Who knows? So many options here on Junjun's side, and things on the scales are definitely tipping in their direction.
Yeah, the scoop up net makes a lot of sense, so that he could weave in one of those options. Looks like the Dedenne is going to be his option here. Still one switch remaining by the looks of things, or possibly two switch remaining in the deck. Just trying to work through the Raichu is fine. You don't probably need to find boss's orders at any point again here, because you're only ever going to see your opponent using Raichu for the most part, because they don't have any more energies that they can burst out onto the field. We actually do find the next switch into the Jirachi. That tells us he's already got the scoop up net, or he's having to Stellar Wish to piece it together right now, which he is able to do. Right? And he can just go in and swing with the Sense Scorch if he wants to. Probably seems like the best option to me. You could try and get value with Heatran now, but I feel like just getting more energies out of the discard pile and building this threat just makes a lot of sense here. Can even see the Eldegoss. I believe there's still the supporter available to him, so he could even weld this turn for even more damage potential and draw more cards. Looking really solid for Senti here.
Yeah, things are really just snowballing, kind of in a pretty violent fashion. Maybe it's past the snowball stage and it's into the avalanche stage. Things are really rolling downhill into Trash Tree's camp, and there's a lot of work to be done here by this Choo Choo GX in the active, and Bolton V picking up one energy. We're gonna switch into the Dede and retreat.
Yeah, we have to paralyze. We have to hope that there is no final switch card from Junjun here. If there is any switch, it's game. Heatran can just come in and finish. We actually see the Bird Keeper, often a one-of in the deck. Sometimes you also see the Malolana. It's kind of flicking between either of those, but it does give the welding player many more outs to those switching options, just in a reaction really to Pikarom and how its win condition sort of appears. It's normally through trying to buy those turns with paralysis, but well teched for by Junjun, and it comes in at the right time. So an easy sweep for the Welder deck. It always prefers going second. Pikarom also prefers going second. When you force them to go first, your win percentage goes way up, not only because your turns are better, but the Pikaroms are worse. So now Trash Tree able to choose to go second. Hopefully is going to have a better rub of the green.
Yep, Bolton V right there off the jump, going to be great. Going to get the first attack, going to be able to electrify some energy onto their side of the board. Chaos Swell might be interesting to stuff a Hearth right off the bat and maybe limit that type of deck thinning, yanking the energies out of the deck into the hand to power up things like Welder, etc. Good luck from Junjun. A little sportsmanship here. Trash Tree just waiting for their opportunity to really rip-roar through their first turn, the second turn of the game. And a Marnie, interesting, at least gives them a supporter play as well, so they're not down and out on that.
Yeah, the hand looks amazing. All you really want to do as the Pikarom player going second is electrify to a good target, and he's already got the energies. The Bolton's already active. He's got the Swell. He's got the Quick Ball. He can start discarding some energies, and he can combine it with a Swell Marnie play, which is pretty much kryptonite for the fire decks. They normally are really reliant on Welder activations for their damage output, and that normally comes through the form of Chaotic Swell. We are seeing the Quick Ball for the Pikarom here. Could be an indicator that instead he's going to choose to go for Professor's Research, because typically you want to attack with the Mewtwo Mew just because it has an extra 30 hit points. So selecting the Pikarom may be an indicator that we're seeing a Research rather than a Marnie turn one for a deeper dive into the deck. Kind of makes sense when you already have two basic Lightnings that you can just toss those away real quick and get maximum value. But seeing the Pikarom come down surprises me, to be honest. It's a little bit more vulnerable. And he's going to keep that Speed Lightning around for later turns. He actually does draw into the Mewtwo Mew now, so possibly you still put that down and electrify onto it. You also have Radar plays potentially for the Deadening deeper here for a few extra options.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what the hope is when on this continual dig here. There's a good texture to the hand. You have the Electrify. I mean, I would love to see that Radar maybe stick around and kind of see how the next turn goes. Because I mean, what were you digging for there? Maybe a Crushing Hammer to kind of put them off their first turn attachment. Can you kind of walk us through what maybe Trash Tree was thinking by going that route?
Yeah, I think exactly. Crushing Hammer is definitely right. Alternatively, just setting up so you have boss's orders for next turn. It's like having the Yell Grunt boss kind of plays open to you for next turn is always a good deal. Just having more options than the hand you were dealt, really, because if you Dede change into like no supporter or no good cards, then you're forced to play like anything. Taking the 6 now means you can Supporter and Dede Change again next turn for like big pushes if you really need to. But I think specifically the Crushing Hammer was the thing worth digging towards probably more than anything. But yeah, I'm more surprised to see the Pikarom hit the board in that early turn, in those early phases when he already had such good push potential that you could have just proactively found the Mewtwo. But getting the Raichu in the discard pile early is obviously a really big deal for him because that's going to be a go-to option to slow down the powerhouse that is Centiskorch that started to get rolling here.
Yeah, absolutely. Something to note, though, on Junjun's side of the board, 3 Giant Hearths are in the discard. So 1 left to play with here for game 2. Now, interesting that you mentioned you would like to see the Mew 3 come down, the Mewtwo GX, because Trashery ended up electrifying to it anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
So their composition, like you said, maybe digging for that Crushing Hammer. They've got a good setup for next turn and some options to play. Now, Junjun, are they going to be able to apply the pressure here with...
No, so they only welded to 1, so they were missing the knockout on the Bolton. So this allows Trashery to potentially get aggressive. You could try and attach to Mew, Boss, and Dede Change and try and find a switch out. You could also Coco and attach to the active to guarantee that play and still make the push. So I think we'll definitely be seeing a Boss's Orders play come down here. Makes the most sense to me. The attachment active, you can drop the Coco, you can play the Boss and then a Crobat for 5 cards. Seems to make a lot of sense here to try and proactively paralyze the Centiskorch. He actually finds the switch, which is even better for him. Crushing Hammers as well. I don't know why you would hold it, especially when there's a Heatran waiting in the wings. You probably want to play this Crushing Hammer just to be on the safest side possible. We are going to see the Dance of the Ancients now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw the strength of Heatran GX and the Burning Road coming to the active and grabbing all this fire energy. So there is value in just, hey, let's get 1 more off the board. But Trashery sees it a little differently and goes in with just a Bolt Storm onto the Centiskorch VMAX, get some of that damage in, soften it up. Like you said, the first hit into the Centiskorch VMAX is important in these kind of 2-shot wars that these games tend to start off on.
So that tells me that he's going to try and set up this 1 Centiskorch, and then next turn he'll be full blitzing Mewtwo, and then trying to put as much onto the Pikarom as possible. Hopefully he has enough basic energy remaining in the deck to try and then piece together a Tag Bolt as his win condition attack. The fact that you attack with the Bolton means it's much easier for Junjun to just attach and then work for welders for the bench now. Whereas if you attacked with a Mewtwo Mew, even with the full blitz, you would have forced everything to be piled onto 1 Centiskorch, and then once you then response knock out that Centi, it's them trying to do a rebuild job with not much else going for them. So kind of surprising to see you're allowing the Bolton to go down so quickly, knowing that you now are forced to full blitz basically. But so far, Junjun hasn't found his next welder. He's just had that attachment so far. So still a few stumbling blocks for him. Centiskorch is going to be taking this KO easily. We actually see it switch here into that Heatran as an alternate option to take the KO with that Hot Burn GX attack instead. Actually, he's just going to move 3 over. He does still have welder. Let's not forget. Actually, you can see the Boss. So looks like he was lacking the right combination to get the most out of the Centiskorch there. So instead, he's going to ignore the 2-prizer and just go for 2 3-prize knockouts instead.
Yep, that Crushing Hammer coming to play because of how Junjun's turn kind of worked itself out. Trashery able to just knock off the energy off the Centiskorch in the back. Going to try and take the knockout here in the front. I believe to be successfully here with a Bolt Storm. And that's going to take all the energy off Junjun's side of the board. 3 Giant Hearth down, no welder because we didn't see it last turn. So there's now we're kind of see the scales tipping a Trashery's direction, and we'll see if this snowball turns into an avalanche, much like it did for Junjun in game 1.
Yeah, I think I'm not super happy with the boss play on the Pikarom, if I'm honest, because you're giving yourself so much work. You're losing so many energies going down this route, and you know that your opponent plays Crushing Hammers already and Yell Grunts, so you're accepting that you're not really dealing with the board at all too easily, and you're just sort of letting them have it. You're not even dealing with the Bolton, which then comes in and immediately response KOs the Heatran. So I think that was an awkward play for Junjun there. I'm not sure I like it too much. I think you kind of just take the Bolton that's free for you, knowing that you can then work towards welders for your following Centi. Obviously, he only had boss available, didn't have welder access. So he was forced down that route, and still no welder here. So it's going to be another slow turn for him. He's just forced to Marnie and probably just manually attach pass to his healthiest Center Scorch, but giving up one prize for free with this napping Jirachi means that Bolton could just gobble up that, and then he's just trying to deal with a damaged Center Scorch to close out the game. So Trash Tree is in a really good spot here.
Yeah, absolutely. As the Pikachu Zekrom player, you got to be sitting across from Center Scorch. Anytime they don't play Welder, you just kind of breathe a sigh of relief. And you're like, okay, that's a turn off. Especially once you just spent last turn wiping their entire board of energy. There's not much they can do without Welder to kind of cripple your setup. So big sigh of relief, big thing for Trash Tree. And on cue, Junjun says, I will go second. And we are off to game 3. So kind of whomever has gotten to go second has gotten the win here. So the ball is back in Junjun's court. And of course, we're going to be looking to do that Flare Starter turn 1. We're going to be looking to power up Centiskorch VMAX to its largest capacity, and then take the first hit into one of the 3 prizers that sits on Trash Tree's side of the board.
Yeah, exactly. True. I think Junjun can still be feeling pretty okay about the situation. As you said, getting to have his preferred leads and the preferred start for him, as long as he can work towards that Flare Starter. It's like hitting off a Welder, which is fantastic, and you're leaving a 1 prizer in the active, which isn't the best thing to hit to initiate a prize race. You're denying that Electrify early on, so it may force Trash Tree into a different approach where he goes towards early Full Blitz plays instead of Electrify plays, but it's still so good for a prize map to sit behind a Boltund as well, so both things are kind of reasonable. But as you said, the person going second so far has just been miles ahead in terms of advantage. So far, there's not even an energy drop for Trash Tree, so he may be forced to do a fairly painful Dede change here instead, looking for some early game attachments.
Of course, yeah.
Coco's prize as well. That's a big prize.
And, we see 3 supporters in the hand, a boss, and I believe it's 2 Marnie switch. And the Eldegoss right there. So not only are all of these going away, the 1 card you play in your deck to buy back some supporters to give you some of that redundancy is also going down. Fortunately, Trash Tree does at least see a lightning energy. So they're at least getting the resource that they were looking for off of that Dede change. However, that was very costly to them and maybe won't inhibit their game plan in the first 2 turns. But as the game progresses, those loss of resources might just kind of be the thing that comes back and bites them.
Yeah, you love Tamani in the Welder matchup for sure. Their hand just grows and grows the more Welders they play. So keeping them in check with Marnie and Swell as a combination, always going to be handy. I like him holding on to the Chaotic Swell here. Means he can just win that Stadium War more guaranteed. You force normally the Hearth comes down proactively from the fire side because they just need to get that Welder in. So you can immediately respond on their first Stadium, but then you're also responding on the second one proactively. So I like holding this combination. He's holding Quick Ball for next turn, so he can just Electrify. We're going to see the early Volcanion from Junjun, a couple Crobat draws as well. Does find himself a Center Scorch, so again, as long as he can get the Jirachi out the way, he's going to have a pretty ideal turn. Also able to Welder 1 to that Center Scorch to help it get even more powerful for the following turns. We do see that Stellar Wish for Quick Ball. Could be something that he's holding on to for future turns if he already has the switch out. And we are indeed going to see that. And it could be just a Flare Starter here, or could be Quick Balling and trying to set up multiple Center Scorch here. The fact that he got rid of another Quick Ball means, okay, he's trying to weave in a Fione to make life a little bit more awkward for the Boltund here.
I actually love that play, especially after seeing the bizarre texture of Trash Tree's first turn. Just had to Dede change a bunch of quality out of their hand to just get what they can only assume was that energy attachment, right? Otherwise, it would have happened before the Dede change. So maybe Junjun smelling a little bit of blood in the water, just trying to make it, as you mentioned, as bizarre as possible for Trash Tree's second turn to get an Electrify off, to start powering up and really trying to grow that advantage of being able to Welder, Flare Starter, all those energies. So just another little bit to kind of push themselves out of Trash Tree's range for their turn 2.
And now it's down to see if Marnie can get a switching out, or it could even force a pay retreat of the Dedenne. He's drawn into a bunch of Crushing Hammers at least to try and throw the Center Scorch off a little bit. Does get 1 heads on there. Got to have to think now whether it's worth trying to deny the potential switch out, where they could just attach retreat to their Volcanion, or if you just want to take it off the Senti itself. Opts for the Senti, is able to Electrify straight to Mewtwo. At the moment, there's only Pikarom in the bin as a viable option for that Mewtwo to copy, as well as Dedenne, of course. But you rarely ever want to do that. So yeah, looks like Junjun able to switch straight back into Stellar Wish now.
Yeah, which means they have the net for sure, right?
Yeah.
Because, we have a manual attachment. I think Junjun is just trying to make sure they're picking up and a Pokecom as well, which means they have another Pokemon because they benched the Centiskorch V. I'm going to be interested to see if they don't have the net here.
Just Dede change, probably. I think he maybe just had to Jirachi to get himself this com in the first place, just to get the fresh hand. So he's just hedging that from this fresh 6 from the Dedenne, he can then work towards that switch out, or he can work towards the welding plays as well for extra draw. Is able to find a crystal. Currently 4 energy on the Centiskorch will be plenty. We are going to see the welder to the benched one for that exact reason, seeing as though he's already doing enough. Into the active, are we able to see the switch out here? And the VMAX, he's still lacking that as well. So do see the net. Probably tells us the story that we are going to see. Actually, no, into the Volcanion.
Which means we're going to flare start again, and Junjun has missed their opportunity potentially to really put the pressure on and take that Bolton V knockout. So another flare starter. We do have 2 Centiskorches in the back ready to be VMAXed and ready to start swinging in. However, that is not that turn, and now Trash Tree breathing a sigh of relief because they've just been given a window of opportunity here.
Getting a free turn is always a nice deal. How do you want to go about dealing with that turn is the next question, though, because, I mean, you could just try and sit and electrify again. You could try and... I think you're still sitting behind this Bolton, probably. It's awkward that you've got rid of 2 Boss and Eldegoss already, because normally you're the one trying to pick and choose who you're hitting first. You're trying to allow the Bolton to go down and then proactively deal with the Sentis quickly. And he's had to research, drawn into, again, a non-mover sort of hand. So may just be forced to crushing and electrify again and sort of split the difference between both Mewtwo's here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't see the necessity to try and break serve here. The options before the research were boss and research, and the only way you push the advantage with a boss in some sort of play. So get the research, get more resources, take a sigh of relief as a turn off, stick to your game plan, get the Bolton V hopefully knocked out first, right? And then pivot into what you need to try and take advantage of the game with your unique plethora of attacks through Mewtwo GX. And it looks like Trash Tree agrees, just electrifies, splits the difference between the Mewtwo's. And now Junjun needs to get a Centiskorch VMAX into the active and needs to start dealing with these threats on the opposing side of the board.
It looks like the VMAX is exactly what's missing right now. He's able to scoop up nets the Volk and is going to start Stellar Wish, trying to dig towards that piece here. Could also try and find more welders for even more draw. Does find a quick ball. Not going to help him too much here unless he's going to throw it all away. We actually see the Bird Keeper for 3 cards here.
Is that a Bird Keeper with the VMAX prayer?
Yeah. He's going to toss the half into the bin thanks to the swell, gobbling it up. And do we finally see that VMAX coming in, or is it another big whiff here? Quick ball for another chance with Dede change potentially.
I'm going to try and check the deck list here.
He definitely, I'm sure he'll play double Dedenne, right? Yeah.
Double Dedenne, double Dedenne, double Crobat. So obviously that wouldn't have been an opportunity for the Crobat V, but just worth noting, that they do have that level of draw power. First, we're going to see a Fiona, and we're going to Whirlpool suction up something. Dedenne GX gets fed.
Yeah, this allows the Burning Train to take 2 prizes, even if he doesn't have the VMAX, which it's a bad thing to see, but it's what's open to him right now by the looks of things while he's still whiffing.
It's Junjun. What are they looking for? Burning Train knockout, and now Trash Tree gets to wipe some energy off the board. Now, good news is for Junjun, if he does lose the 4 energy here, there's still 2 hearts available to them somewhere, whether in the prizes in their deck. And Trash Tree's 1 Chaos Swell is gone. So the next hearth that comes down will be unimpeded. So hopefully we can do some welder, dig some fire energy out of the deck, and kind of match the intensity if Trash Tree is able to wipe these energy off the board, which doesn't seem unreasonable at this point in time.
Yeah, we're probably going to see the combo of Crushing Hammer, hopefully hitting a heads for him, and then also Yell Grunt at the same time, and then just full blitz straight away. Build up 2 Mewtwo's pretty powerfully. Could also put the other Bolton down if you really want to spread your threats continually. But when you don't have much to work with in terms of your hand, you probably want to have both Mewtwo's just ready to rumble. You're hoping that these energy removals keep you out of range, and you're just going to swing, pull 3 energies, the remaining basic energies that are in your deck. Looks like it could all go to Mewtwo on the bench. You've got 2 things ready to rumble that way. The Bolton is then also looking pretty valuable. You've taken 3 dead draws out of your deck as well, which is pretty good. So we'll see if Junjun is going to react to that by staying as just a 2-prize Center Scorch in the active and just hitting for 180 that way, trying to skew that prize race a little bit for Trash Tree potentially.
Well, that's how it starts. So Welder with 2 energy to the active. That Center Scorch V just sitting with 60 HP remaining in the face of an untouched Mewtwo Mew GX. So Junjun's got some options here with almost a 9-10 card hand. And here's Fione to Whirlpool Suction again. A lot of mileage for old Fione here in game 3. I think that's the 3rd Whirlpool Suction we've gotten.
I think I like Bolton best here. Bolton forces the VMAX to actually take the prize cards. Otherwise, they just Burning Train for 180, which is no good, really. If you give them giving them the Mewtwo allows them to get really relevant damage in now. And it means you aren't, you'd have to draw an energy to get full value from your Tag Bolt, or you'd have to draw a Choo-Choo to Lightning Ride your way out. And at the moment, he has no draw in his hand whatsoever. Kind of surprising to see the Bolton come down, because I think if you give them Bolton, you actually want them to VMAX because it allows you to take an extra prize more easily the following turn.
No, that's a great point. Maybe Trash Tree hedging a little bit, saying I need to make a big play here, otherwise it might snowball out of control. I don't necessarily foresee that happening. I agree with you. Give them the Bolton, make them commit. I mean, Junjun has shown that they don't even have a VMAX available to them. So, that could have been speed energy off the top because Trash Tree is a professional here.
That's a nice draw. That's a really nice draw. So he can Bolton now and put the Mewtwo back to the bench to try and be a little bit safer, or he could just cash in, go for a big Tag Bolt play if he really wants to. It's open to him. I think because you want to draw the cards, Bolton seems so tempting because, you're drawing potentially 4 cards anyway from knocking out the active and the Dedenne or something like that. But Bolton is also tempting. Cashing in on it while you can seems okay. Putting another 2-prizer into the active, not bad. It's a tough call because it's a really tough call because you don't have any draw in your hand and you're just hoping that your prizes help you if you go for the Mewtwo play. Okay, he does go active. I think this is fine. You're drawing a ton of cards from the GX attack.
Yeah, and like you said, they were able to thin out some energy before. That might be critical here. Just thinking, hey, my draw step isn't going to be so bad. Let's dig out some of the stuff out of the prizes. Switch, Tapu Koko, Prism, Team Yell Grunt, and Bolton V. Now we're really off the top in terms of draw, and the onus is on Junjun to make a move here with this Center Scorch V, which has yet to be VMAXed in what is the core strategy of the deck.
It's going to fire away a Marnie to reduce that hand size quite a lot and hoping to find that VMAX desperately because it's obviously what he's looking for here. Trash Tree draws into a great hand now off that Marnie. He's been waiting for that this whole time, basically. Gets him straight into the option to Choo-Choo, gets him Speed Lightning as well as potential Marnie or Research, depending on how Junjun's hand plays out. Who, is hoping that he can make something tankier than just the Center Scorch V, but if he's still whiffing the VMAX, he just has to keep the train rolling.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. VMAX finally shows up, finally makes its way into the game, which I guess is step 1, right? That's kind of like base level step 1. I want my Center Scorch VMAX deck to have Center Scorch VMAX in play.
Playing Giratina so that he can stamp proof potentially is my only thinking there. Obviously, you're already taking energies off the board. And you are taking a 3-prize knockout. So I think the Tina is just played there to stamp proof more than anything, as you're going down to 1 and you're kind of terrified of that play. So you're hoping, Trash Tree's line is pretty simple here. You get the Choo-Choo out You also draw the air balloon, which makes this turn even better, and you just try and find the stamp and paralyze. That's pretty much the optimal turn for you, I would say. Has both stamps still in the deck. That's what you're pushing towards. You still have Crobat and Dedenne in there, as well as the research and the speed lightning, so you can draw an unholy amount of cards here. So that's the play he's working towards, no doubt.
Tapu Koko Prism and another speed energy off of the attachment of the speed energy there. Air balloon onto the Bolton V. We're going to Professor's Research. No sense in taking up a bench spot with that Raichu. We do have Dedenne, but we are out. We are not seeing the stamp yet.
Nope, there's still 2 in the 10-card deck. He can continue to thin a little bit more. Getting a bit dicey now, though, because even if you don't draw it off that, you do have the Crobat, but then it's a tightrope of deck out or not. So you have to be a little bit careful here. If you proactively grab the Crobat, actually, how many hand cards do you have? If you grab the Crobat, you can play Switch Balloon, and then you would have, I think you can mathematically guarantee it with Crobat being chosen instead here. But we're seeing the Pikarom dump instead, just kind of hoping at this point. I think you could guarantee it because you have 2 of them in the 10-card deck, so you could have like definitely had it, but regardless, he does find one of these 2 stamps. He had super high odds anyway, so we're going to see the stamp para play. Also going to see the Dance of the Ancients onto the Mewtwo. I'm not really sure why this dance is going here particularly, but he already has the switch for next turn for Bolton to finish the game, so just going to slam down that Koko, bring out the Mewtwo, para play. Let's see what the stamp brings.
Tandem Shock it is. Let's see what Junjun gets off the top here. 2-card hand to work with. Needs to get Centiskorch out of the active and something else into the active. Just a pass.
That's the game. You can just freely retreat with the air balloon. Bolton has a ton of energies there. You can Bolt Storm, finish off the big man, and that's going to wrap up the 3rd game. Really exciting stuff there.
Yeah, and I think it all kind of boils down to the one turn, Junjun's turn 2 of the game, just not finding a Centiskorch VMAX to be able to really take advantage of going second in that game. Yeah,
it's rough, right? Because even with the really cool like Fiona players, you got to take the Dedenne out and draw a few extra cards, but even though you're only giving up a 2-prizer, you're not really cashing in on your VMAX, and the VMAX gives you even more energy acceleration, which doesn't sound like a big deal when you're only a 2-energy attacker, but you're fending off those hammers that are being thrown into the mix here and there that keeps you out of range for the tag team GXs, most importantly. So missing your main attacker for so many turns is always a little bit rough. You had the burning train rolling for a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's a pretty easy sequence that the Pikarom deck tries to rinse and repeat. Drop a few prizes, stamp paralyze, make them have like switch, welder, switch. It's a lot to get from just like 1 or 2 cards each time. And that's how Pikarom oftentimes sort of mops up these matchups, especially the welder ones where their main draw supporter requires combinations of cards. So when you're stamping low, they need to get pretty fortunate to draw any more.
Well, when on behalf of that, we saw Trash Tree take a good win with Pikarom there. Was able to execute their game plan to finish it out and close the door. And Junjun, unfortunately, had the one stumble that one turn where they could not find a Centiskorch VMAX after using the Whirlpool Suction to create an awkward sequence of events for Trash Tree. And unfortunately, Trash Tree played it cool, calm, and collected, able to get their resources back into their hands, stick to their game plan, and execute it flawlessly, taking the win there 2-1. On behalf of Joe, I'm Kirk, and we will be right back taking a quick break with round 14.